Walk into almost any modern high school today, and you will find an environment built for passive information transfer. In this setting, information flows in one direction. When a student's primary role is to receive and repeat, their agency is stripped away, replaced by a cycle of compliance where a single error feels like a permanent verdict. It is this lack of control and the weight of constant evaluation, rather than the material itself, that generates the emotional fatigue and anxiety seen in today's classrooms. But watch that same student go home and boot up a video game. They will fail a challenge 20 times in a row, yet eagerly hit restart after every single defeat. Traditional education often drains motivation by punishing mistakes with permanent, high-stakes grades. Games generate infinite resilience through voluntary, low-stakes challenges. Effective gamification is distinct from game-based learning. It avoids the superficiality of simply playing a full-scale game in place of homework, or adding a decorative technological layer to a worksheet. It is instead a deliberate structural layer. By applying game design elements like narrative arcs and immediate feedback loops to the curriculum, educators can target and trigger specific neurocognitive pathways in the learner. This psychological architecture changes how a student's brain processes a setback. As we see here, the traditional linear path of study, test, and grade becomes a continuous loop of challenge, feedback, and mastery. The classroom becomes an engine for emotional resilience. The reason these game mechanics hold such a powerful grip on the human brain comes down to self-determination theory. This theory argues that for individuals to achieve optimal psychological growth, they require three things. First, autonomy. This single path branches into multiple options, giving students voice and choice over assignments. Second, competence. Immediate feedback loops build an ongoing sense of mastery. Massive objectives become small quests, with each step providing a clear marker of success. When the classroom fulfills these innate needs for autonomy and competence, the act of learning transforms from a coerced obligation into a self-driven pursuit. Gamification functions as a preventative framework for anxiety by constructing psychologically safe learning architectures. In traditional schooling, a failing grade carries a heavy sense of permanence and shame. In a gamified system, failure is reframed as a reset, an opportunity to lose a life and try again without a permanent penalty. Immediate positive reinforcement through points or badges provides constant emotional validation. For students who have experienced chronic academic struggle, this constant stream of small victories is crucial for keeping them engaged. Look at the contrast here. A heavy red F abruptly ends the learning process. A glowing try again prompt invites the student to take another intellectual risk. Reframing failure as a necessary step toward mastery actively neutralizes academic burnout. You might assume this requires a massive IT budget, but effective gamification is a pedagogical strategy, not a software requirement. It can be executed entirely offline. Take narrative quests. A history teacher might frame a unit as a cold case investigation. Students aren't just memorizing dates, they are identifying the specific chronological events needed to resolve the story's central mystery. Teachers can also use choice-based leveling. Here, students select the difficulty tier of a physical assignment, earning higher amounts of experience points for tackling tougher critical thinking questions. Even simple analog trackers drive engagement. Handing out bingo sheets for active listening during a lecture or placing tangible markers of achievement on a physical classroom chart creates immediate, undeniable visual proof of progress. Research suggests that analog gamification often yields higher course satisfaction than digital platforms. The tangible, social nature of these physical mechanics prevents the isolation caused by excess screen time. There is a significant trap in this architecture. If a system relies too heavily on extrinsic rewards, handing out points and badges merely to drive compliance, the entire structure falls apart. Psychologists call this the over-justification effect. As this graph demonstrates, if a student already has an organic interest in a subject, adding external rewards can actually erode that interest. Notice how intrinsic motivation begins to plummet below the baseline the moment the reward is removed. As points are handed out randomly without mapping to real achievement, the system devolves into an empty transactional loop. The student experiences motivational depletion rather than engagement.
Gamification is actively harmful if the mechanics highlight the external prize itself. The design must always illuminate the inherent value of the knowledge being acquired. To avoid this trap, educators must adopt game design thinking. Every ludic element and quest must be strictly mapped to state standards and specific learning objectives. The core rule of alignment is that the game mechanics cannot distract from the curriculum. The academic content itself has to be the tool the student uses to resolve the challenge. Aligning these mechanics shifts the teacher's focus. They move from delivering content at the front of the room to acting as emotional facilitators, designers who manage the classroom's psychological climate while students navigate their quests.
When gamification is perfectly aligned, it functions as an essential architecture that builds resilient, confident individuals. Students learn to look at a difficult academic challenge not as a threat, but as a quest waiting to be conquered.